A fascinating election in Jammu and Kashmir, September-October 2024. Free, fair, transparent and voluntary. Omar Abdullah of the National Conference returns to the Chief Minister chair. But a lot has changed since his previous tenure. You may think, what is the big deal about this election in J&K? But anyone who has lived in the Kashmir Valley or has worked there, reported from there, will tell you, this election was a big deal. For those who ask, क्या बदल गया? ऐसा क्या बदल गया? What has changed in Jammu Kashmir? I will tell you in this episode what truly has changed and possibly a lot that needs to change here on. This is what Pakistan had turned the Kashmir Valley into. A region in total Jammu and Kashmir, where violent conflict, curfews, bloodshed were a daily norm. There were no-go zones and almost every day a killing was being reported. And every time there was an election, it was a time of tension. Three keywords were consistently heard all these years: Pakistan, violence and force. All these three were missing this time. And that is why I say it was a victory of Indian democracy. People had concerns, they had grievances of what they feel on the ground, sure. But they also decided to come out and cast their vote to decide on that without the fear of the gun. This time I reported from the interiors of South Kashmir's Anantnag, Pulwama, or North Kashmir's Baramulla, among other places. And what I saw was quite incredible. The work of many individuals and organizations over the past 5 years, and the willingness of many Kashmiris to move ahead to better days. Barely 8 years ago, less than a decade, when I was in the Kashmir Valley reporting, even if from the Srinagar city, there would be stone pelting anywhere and everywhere, any time of the day. There would be blockades. There would be areas you were not allowed to venture into. And caught in this quagmire were also children, school-going students, who hadn't seen anything better. Today, in the same areas, people were speaking to me, willingly, ready to vote, elect their leader, and decide their future as per the Indian Constitution. Importantly, many parents realizing that life of their children were being saved. And now it was the opportunity to go ahead. Something that was unthinkable earlier, today collectively families coming together to ensure that the next generation can witness a fair normalcy and opportunities like everyone else across India.
मगर तो ऐसे त्रावुन वोट इस बार लगाना वोट हाँ और इस बार करेगा वोट इंशाल्लाह
We want to live with a dignity and in peace.
The total turnout of the Jammu Kashmir elections was about 70%. In all phases, seats in the Jammu division usually though have recorded a good turnout all these years, but even this time Udhampur, Samba, Indarwal recorded about 70 to 80% turnout. This is massive even by Jammu standard, and I say that because Jammu division is now where the terrorists have shifted their focus to. They are harming, killing innocent people and the armed forces that are deployed there. Even while the election season were on, joint operations were on in the upper reaches of Doda and Kishtwar to neutralize terrorists so they do not harm people who have come out to vote. This also means that Jammu voters decided to defeat the fear of the gun. They landed in long queues to send out a message. From Jammu region to the Kashmir Valley, Baramulla recorded about 60%. That's a huge turnout, considering this district had locations where sometimes not even one vote was cast. Pick any election of Jammu and Kashmir in the past few years and you'll realize what I'm talking about. There were elections, turnout usually have been hovering around 50% at max, but it was almost never a smooth election. For example, this is a polling center in Lethpura, Pulwama, South Kashmir. You're right, same area where the suicide bombers in 2019 killed 40 CRPF personnel. I was here during the polling season and I was reporting from this booth in Pulwama where the locals said that only one vote was cast in 1989 Lok Sabha elections. This time, approximately 50% voter turnout. All voluntary, all decisive to choose their leader who can take their problems ahead. Polling percentage increased by 12.97% in the Pulwama Assembly constituency in 2024 compared to the corresponding elections held in 2014 as per government data. Look at 1996. This was at the peak of terrorism sponsored by Pakistan. Jihadists were inflicting the worst brutalities on Hindus, Muslims, anyone. By now, the Hindu community had already been ethnically cleansed out from the Kashmir Valley. So therefore, there was a prevalent fear of their gun. That also ensured that a common voter on the ground showed a very low turnout, especially in selected areas of the Kashmir Valley. Those who cared or dared to come out to cast their vote faced brutalities in return by these terrorists in the name of God. People's fingers were checked for the blue ink, and houses were vandalized and targeted at night if it was confirmed this person had cast the vote. And that is why you cannot take for granted the value and significance of the kind of elections we have seen this time around. I take you to North Kashmir now. There was once an area called the Boycott Hub that was Sopore, the stronghold of Hurriyat hardliner Saeed Ali Shah Gilani, known as the hub of often terrorism militancy. Now, Saeed Ali Shah Gilani believed that Kashmir is a Muslim majority region, so it becomes a natural ally of Pakistan. Today, people of that district recorded over 60% percentage to elect their local leader as per Indian Constitution, who will help resolve their problems on the ground as elections are supposed to be. The fact is that I do not intend to throw numbers and statistics at you, because for Jammu and Kashmir that has been mired in a bloody conflict all these years, every human life is important. And perhaps with this we've also seen that people are realizing that India means well for them, not Pakistan. Pakistan never did mean well for them. Look at this. Those who were earlier separatists, radical conservative Jamaat-e-Islami, to the mainstream National Conference, PDP, or new outfits that have emerged in the past 5 to 10 years. Some of these seats in Jammu and Kashmir had more than 15 options at least, which means extreme right to extreme left. It was now the onus on the people on the ground. They have their options and they can decide whoever they want. Eventually, maximum majority went to the National Conference. Omar Abdullah met Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha to form an elected democratic government in Naya, Jammu and Kashmir, in Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Meticulous planning, constant vigil, no major law and order incidents. Data suggests that in 2014, over 170 incidents of violence and law and order were reported, including 87 on the polling days when people were casting their vote. This time, no bias, no rigging. This is a reminder, on one hand, of a united political will to be able to find a solution to this conflict, to end it, and then of many unknown heroes who have worked anonymously on the ground to bring you the peace that you see today. And this speaks also about people of Jammu and Kashmir, those who realize that this is a threshold, an opportunity for peace and prosperity to go here on, and possibly an opportunity you may never get again for J&K. And with that, it's a decision to make. To either continue to lead Pakistan, which is anyway drowning in its own karma, to also drown Kashmir to death now. Or, as Kashmiris, we rise to the challenge and ensure that here on, it will truly be the Jannat that we have known it to be. There were also the Kashmiri Hindu voters who still hold on to their original address from across Kashmir Valley, from which they were forced to flee in the 1990s. They were also provided with an easier facility to elect their leader, in hope that if and when and once the situation stabilizes, they may be able to return to their home too. As I conclude this episode of Homeland, here's a reminder for you. Don't think that all is well. Let's not be in denial about it. There are traces of blood in that snowfall. I remember recently Riyasi, where Hindu children were shot dead at point-blank range by the terrorists. Rajouri, where innocent civilians were blown up in an IED blast by infiltrated terrorists hiding in forests. Or Poonch or other upper ranges where armed forces have been brutally ambushed. Or Srinagar city, where a Kashmiri Pandit was killed for simply existing. Or a Muslim Golgappa seller from Uttar Pradesh was targeted for his livelihood he was earning in the Kashmir Valley. Basically, that means that there are frustrated Pakistan which will want to keep Jammu and Kashmir on the boil because it suits them, they want it. Because they cannot tolerate the peace and prosperity that is possibly coming to J&K. So to always remember that for every radical extremist brainwashed by Pakistan sent into our territory to destroy Jammu and Kashmir and thereby India, there is to counter them a sensible patriotic Kashmiri, a nationalist Jammu resident, a brave Indian, standing together ready to fight that evil that Pakistan sends our way. And this, many of our people are doing at the risk of his or her life. I want to thank you, and I want to say that I see you and I remember you. May this be the start of a region that finally gets its due. Finally. On that note of hope, thank you for watching.